everybody, it's Sarah, and today was supposed to be a very wholesome video. Maybe more for you than for me, because I intended to share all my unfinished series on my bookshelves here in my flat. So I wanted to talk to you about which series I intend to finish, which series I DNF'd, all that kind of stuff. I had already almost finished editing that video as well, but then something happened. And that something that happened is that I finished a book. And the ending of that book made me so incredibly angry and furious that I am now filming my first rant review. Because I just wanted to share all my thoughts on that book in a video. I already did rant a little bit on Twitter. Shameless self-plug, by the way. All the links to my social media are in the description box down below. Go and check them out. But anyway, I did already rant on Twitter, but there's only so much you can say in a Twitter thread without it becoming too long, so I wanted to sit down again and film a more or less coherent video. I don't know how coherent I will be able to be. I will try to be mostly coherent. But anyway, the book that I am talking about is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. And this book is actually quite hyped on BookTube, and I do not understand why. I honestly can't understand why. If I say the ending of the book was the most problematic thing I ever read in a book, I do mean that. I 100% mean that, and I do not say that lightly. Also, I usually give a book at least 2 stars, even if I hated it, because I can mostly see that even if a book wasn't for me, I can see some positive traits in a book, and the only reason why I would give 1 star to a book is if in my eyes it's just not redeemable. I gave this book 1 star. I actually saw some people talk about this book in a not so positive light, but I was just like, yeah, whatever, there's always some people who won't like a book, and the vast majority loves this book, so I have to read it. I want to read it. I really enjoy Asian-inspired fantasy. This is Asian-inspired fantasy. It's adult fantasy, not YA, by the way, I'll get to that later as well. So I gotta read it. And, well, that did not turn out so well, did it? Also, if I have lipstick on my teeth during this video, it seems to happen every 20 minutes or something that I have lipstick on my teeth. I am sorry. Okay, so I will try to make this video as closely to my usual reviews as I can. So I will start with a quick summary of the book. Then I will get into just a spoiler-free review, I guess. Although I don't even think you should read this book. I highly recommend, even if you have not read this book, watch the whole video, regardless of spoilers, because I guarantee you by the end, you won't want to read this book. Just a fair warning. And then at the end, I will talk about what upset me so much, and that of course will be the big spoiler. So what is the story about? This is an Asian-inspired, or more accurately, I think Chinese history-inspired high fantasy novel, adult high fantasy novel. Although, to be honest, I think it's just a YA novel that tries very hard to be adult in the way that it's very gruesome. And I just think that there's more to an adult fantasy novel than just sex and being very violent. So I would actually classify this as YA. I don't know how closely it's inspired by Chinese history, because I have to say it's not a part of history that I am very interested in, that I have read very much about. So what I'm saying is I can guess that it's Chinese inspired, but I can't say how closely. The things that I can definitely say though, that are very obvious to me, is that our main continent, our main country is inspired by China, whereas another nation that plays actually a very insignificant role seems to be mostly European inspired. And then the main villain, the main enemy is, for me at least, very obviously Japanese inspired. As in, they have a god emperor, which of course is a thing with the Japanese emperor, that he's a direct descendant of the gods. And also their soldiers, they have this whole thing where they're just part of the whole, they're not individuals, they don't really care if they die or not, all that type of stuff, which is very reminiscent of the kamikaze pilots in the Second World War. Also, they live on a longbow island, and I mean, that sounds like Japan to me. Anyway, the story follows our main character Rin, who is a war peasant, and she takes this test to get into this really important military academy, which you shouldn't actually even be able to do because it's really hard to get into this academy, of course. And of course, again, she gets in, and while she's there, she discovers that she has the ability to, like, not talk with gods, but like connect with the gods, and that she's basically a shaman. And then like war starts and all that type of stuff. So that's the basic summary. Now for a spoiler-free review, I guess. Actually, until the last 50 pages of the book, I really enjoyed it. Like, it had a lot of problems, to be honest. Like, one thing was the thing where I'm like, it's YA, but it tries really hard to be adult, which I didn't enjoy that much. Then Rin is just like not relatable as a main character, and also the way the whole story was narrated. Usually when you read a story, the stuff that happens in the story shouldn't be narrated. I'm not sure if I can like properly explain it, but I'll try my best. So you should be shown what happens and not told what happens, is what I actually mean. And in this book, it's mostly just like we're told in hindsight what happens. Like there's this main character who is absolutely horrible to Rin, and we're supposed to hate him, but we can't really hate him because most of the time we don't even see what he does to her that's so horrible. We're just like told in hindsight, and that just takes away from the whole story, I think. Also, it keeps us from building a connection with the side characters because we're never actually shown the side characters, or just in very rare instances. So if something happens to them or they die, I was just like, why should I care? Sure, I'm sad that like this apparently best friend of Rin just died, but it's just, why? We don't know that person. We were told about him, but we actually like saw him 2 times in the book. And it's also way too fast paced. Like, I think half the book is already 3 or 4 years. And if I had written the book, like ignoring the last bit, I would have made this whole first book just about Rin's time at the academy, or just the first year at the academy. Because like at the end of the first year, they have like this big exam where it's like, oh my god, will they stay or do they have to go? And I'd have just like, again, I'd have made that the climax of the book. That would have made so much more sense, and it wouldn't have been so rushed. One other main problem that I had with this book is that Rin, as I said, can like connect to gods, and she can call the power of gods to her. And there are repeatedly characters who tell her not to do that, and that the price is too high. And that is actually a pet peeve of mine in books, when you have like mentor-like characters or ethereal characters or whatever, who tell the main character that whatever they want to do, their price is too high, but who never tell them what exactly the price is. Because the thing is, Rin knows what the price is if she doesn't call the power of gods to her. She doesn't know what the price is if she calls the power of gods to her. So of course she's gonna decide to call the power of gods to her. Like, that's not even an issue. But yeah, so my review for the first 450 pages of the 500 pages of the book, I enjoyed the book. There were some issues, especially stylistic issues that I had, but I could still enjoy the book. But then something happened, and now I have to get into spoilers. And that brings me now to the thing that upset me the most. And by the way, I'm not going to talk about this as if you have read the book. I will explain everything as I did to Hannah earlier today, who hasn't read the book as well, because I do hope that even if you haven't read the book, to keep watching and to decide not to pick up this book, because honestly, I do not think it deserves the hype it gets. It's just, I just don't know how to explain how horrible the thing is that happens in there, so I'm just gonna explain the whole thing that happens. So you have 2 countries, the Nicara, which is our main continent, it's the country where Rin is from, and you have Mugen, who is the attackers, they are the villains. And the author makes very sure throughout the whole book to tell us just how horrible Mugen is. They attack Nicara halfway through the book, and even in the past war they committed genocide of a whole people, of which we find out later Rin is a part of, which she didn't even know herself. And even during this new war we see Mugen decimate a whole city once, and treating the killing of thousands or tens of thousands of soldiers and also civilians as sports. As in, they try to decapitate as many people as possible in the shortest amount of time. They bury people up to their waist and then set rabid dogs on them. They burn them, they stack their corpses as high as they can, all that type of stuff. So like, they're not good people, and we're not supposed to think they're good people, and I wouldn't ever say they're good people. But then, after that happens, Rin is captured, Rin is set free again, and she goes to the temple of this phoenix god, who is like the god she can connect to. And one of her friends, her commander, died a short while earlier, so of course she's like angry and stuff, which still doesn't excuse what happens next. Which is that she asks the phoenix god to kill all the Muganese people. I'm not sure if it's actually Muganese. And I'm not talking about helping her kill all the soldiers that are attacking her country and like who are in her country, which like it will still be a lot of people, and I still wouldn't be sure how to feel about that. But no, she actually asks the phoenix god to kill all the people of Mugan. So destroy the whole island. And as I read that, I was very shocked, to be honest, because I don't care how much she regrets it after. I still wouldn't ever like a main character after they committed genocide. And I was like, oh my god. But that's not even the worst of it. The worst of it happens after. So she falls unconscious after and is found by her friends again. And then talks to one of her friends from academy, and he's like, what did you do? And I asked the phoenix god to kill the Muganese people. And he's like, you mean the phoenix god made you do it, right? And she's like, no, I was completely in my own mind. Let me see. Yeah, there. What was your will? Kitty demanded. I told you, she whispered. I went to my god. I told it what I wanted. He looked aghast. You're saying, so your god, it made you do this? My god didn't make me do anything, she said. The gods can't make our choices for us. They can only offer their power, and we can wield it. And I did, and this is what I chose. She swallowed. I don't regret it. You did to Mugan the same thing they did to Spear. They deserved it. How could anyone deserve that? How, Rin? You don't know what they did, she said in a low whisper. What they were planning. They were going to kill us all. They don't care about human lives. I know. I was at Golden Nis, which by the way is the city that was decimated. So like the character who was at that city tells her she's wrong. I lay amid the corpses for days, but you turned around and did the exact same thing. Civilians, innocents, children. You buried an entire country and you don't feel a thing. Yeah, the way she destroyed the whole island was she made all the volcanoes on the island erupt and kill everyone. And yeah, Rin doesn't regret it. There's another quite horrible, like before that, while she's killing them. The part where it's explained how she kills them. The death of one soldier was a tragedy because she could imagine the pain he felt at the very end. The hopes he had. The finest detail, like the way he put on his uniform, whether he had a family, whether he had kids whom he told he would see right after he came back from war. His life was an entire world constructed around him, and the passing of that was a tragedy. But she could not possibly multiply that by thousands. That kind of thinking did not compute. The scale was unimaginable. So she didn't bother to try. The part of her that was capable of considering that no longer worked. Those weren't lives. They were numbers. They were a necessary subtraction. That's how the genocide of an entire people is written. And so then she talks to that guy who tells her, what the fuck is wrong with you? You're a fucking monster. And she doesn't regret it. And then in the next scene, she talks to two friends who also killed a lot of people the days before that. And she starts regretting things. And I was like, okay, maybe she at least regrets it. Like, maybe she's not that much of a horrible person. But then the following conversation happens. What have I done? The same thing that we did, said Kara. We won a war. No, I killed. Rin choked. She couldn't finish saying it. But Kara suddenly looked angry. What do you want from me? Do you want forgiveness? I can't give you that. Would you like to compare death toll? She asked sharply. Would you like to argue about whose guilt is greater? You created an eruption and we caused a flood. Entire villages drowned in an instant, flattened. You destroyed the enemy. We killed the Nikara. Yeah, cause like that's also excuse, cause it's in war, you know? Rin could only stare at her. Kara wrenched her arm out of Rin's grip. Get that look off your face. We made our decisions and we survived with our country intact. Worth it is worth it. But we murdered. We won a war, Kara shouted. We avenged him. He's gone, but avenged. Their friend that died a short while earlier. So, like, winning a war apparently is worth killing an entire people and, like, thousands of civilians and... Why would a person write something like that? I mean, to a certain extent, I would understand if you write it and if you, like, put it in a way that, like, main characters don't always have to do the morally right thing or whatever is perceived by most people as morally right. But you can't make your main character kill an entire people and then not have her regret it. Or the instant that she regrets it, have two other characters tell her, no, it's all alright. You did what you had to do to win the war. That's worth it. The thing is, you can't treat a country like a person. For example, just as an example, Japan during the Second World War and even before that, while they colonized Korea, they did absolutely horrible, despicable things that are absolutely inexcusable, especially since Japan still hasn't officially apologized for it to Korea. But that still doesn't excuse the atom bomb. That still doesn't make it okay that 100,000 civilians in Hiroshima were killed in an instant. One doesn't have anything to do with the other. You can't act with a country the same way as you can do with a person. If a person kills someone, then at least going by fantasy logic and, like, of course now we have a system to deal with people who murder people, but, like, in a way, if a person murders someone, then you in turn are justified to murder them by fantasy logic. You can still, like, go around it and talk about the morality of it, like, how should we deal with that stuff? Is death penalty justified, for example? Like, all the type of stuff that I don't want to get into right now. But you can't act as if a country is a person. That's, like, I honestly have no idea how coherent I am, but you can probably see how upset I am by this. And, like, even I would think it's more okay, in quotes, let's say she committed genocide and she obviously regrets it, and then the whole second book you deal with how she deals with the thing she did. Like, it still would be pretty stupid, but, like, it'd be more okay than this. And honestly, I want to pick up the second book just because I want to see if the author just brushes the whole thing under the rug or if she talks about it. Like, certain things in books are allowed to happen. Even main characters are allowed to do them. But I still think as an author you have a certain responsibility, even if you don't give us an answer, to just, like, make the reader think, was this right what the person did just now? And the author just, the way the book ended, she just brushed it under the rug and she didn't start any discussion. She didn't, like, if I weren't me, I would never start thinking about whether or not Rin's decision was right. And the atom bomb for me is just an obvious parallel, to be honest. When it comes to ending a war, like, you have the whole discussions about the atom bomb where the people who decided to drop it were like, yeah, 100,000 people and more are gonna die if we drop that bomb, but if we don't, the war goes on and we don't know how many people then might die. There might be 100,000 more. But in my opinion, that still doesn't make it right to drop the atom bomb. So, like, it still doesn't make it right for Rin to just kill an entire people. And the thing is, she didn't even kill the soldiers in her own land. The soldiers in her own land are still all there. And I'm just... this upsets me so much. I don't know. I don't know what to do. It's, I feel like I need to shut up now. Otherwise, I'm just gonna keep going and keep going and keep going. But yeah, one last thing, actually. Like, Anne Bishop, my favorite author, one of my favorite characters in her books, actually also committed genocide. But just to see what the difference is, okay? It's still not okay. It's still like on no level okay. This genocide is not better than this genocide. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the way the authors dealt with the genocide. Here, which is this book, which is Poppy War, the main character doesn't even regret it. She makes the decision with her full wits about her. She tells us, no, I was aware of what I'm doing. That's it. In Anne Bishop's Black Jewel series, the character that commits genocide, his son is sent to him in bits and pieces, his 3-month-old son, by this also coincidentally island country. As a result, he slips into the Twisted Kingdom, which is Black Jewel's language for he basically goes crazy. And he doesn't remember anything, and when he comes to himself again, nothing is left of that country. And he regrets it. He afterwards is scared of himself and everything. And it still doesn't make the genocide okay. It still doesn't make it any better than this genocide. But just like the way it's handled is what I'm saying. It's handled in a way where the reader is supposed to know this isn't okay in any way. And the only reason he did that is because effectively went crazy and can't remember anything. And it's also a difference, like, I read loads of books where there are main characters who suddenly are completely overpowered and kill an entire army of tens of thousands of people in the blink of an eye. But all of those characters afterwards had an immense moral dilemma and worked on that for years and for the rest of the series probably to get over the guilt of killing so many people at once. And for those were armies in a war fighting against each other. And it's completely different when you kill soldiers than when you kill civilians. That's like, it's not the same category. So, whatever. I hope if you haven't read this book, you stayed until this point and you decide not to pick up the book if you thought about it. And if you have read the book, tell me in the comments down below if you were as upset as me about that ending. And if you weren't, like, no judgment, actually, maybe I just thought a lot about it, or more than others, or maybe I think differently about it. And just tell me in the comments down below why you personally didn't think it was such a big deal as I did. But anyway, again, all my links to my social media are in the description box down below, so go and check those out. And if you enjoyed this video, please maybe give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I hope I'll see you soon. Bye!